have you filled up lately? Gas prices are climbing across Canada as conflict in the Middle East intensifies. Experts say these higher gas prices could last for weeks, even months, depending on how long the crisis continues.
Well, we've seen an average across Canada of 6 cent a litre increase yesterday, a 3 cent a litre increase today, a 2 cent a litre increase tomorrow, and Saturday looks like at least a 3 to 4 cent a litre increase right across the country. Now, of course, the Maritimes have regulated prices, and they sometimes have to wait for these changes to take place. But when they happen very dramatically. So right across the country, we're achieving numbers that we haven't seen in a long time. And of course, we're not getting the protection we once did.
Canadians woke up this week to a harsh reality. Gas prices are surging across the country, and the spike is not stopping. From Halifax to Vancouver, pump prices jumped almost overnight, and some cities saw increases of 10 to 16 cents per litre in only a few days. The reason is a war happening thousands of kilometers away. That conflict is choking off about 20% of the world's oil supply and sending crude oil prices into a frenzy. Because of that, Canadian households are about to feel economic pressure that goes far beyond simply filling up the gas tank. The price for a barrel of Brent crude oil, which is the international benchmark, briefly rose above US $84. That represents a jump of more than $10 since the conflict began. That surge is now translating directly into higher costs at gas stations across Canada. In Atlantic, Canada drivers woke up to sudden overnight spikes. In the Halifax area, the price of regular self-serve gasoline increased by 8.9 cents. The minimum price reached 147.7 cents per litre on Wednesday morning. In Cape Breton, the new price for regular self-serve gasoline rose to 149.6 cents per litre. Atlantic Canada is not alone. Gas prices in the Greater Toronto Area jumped to 143.9 cents per litre on Wednesday, which was up 6 cents from the previous day. In Lethbridge, prices had already jumped about 10 cents since the weekend, with the average price sitting around $1.25 per litre on Wednesday. Other major Canadian cities have also seen rising gasoline prices during the past week. Toronto climbed more than 4 cents to about $1.39 per litre. Montreal increased 4 cents to about $1.56. Saskatoon saw one of the biggest spikes with a 15-cent increase, pushing the average price to around $1.37 per litre. The cause is becoming clear. Escalating conflict in the Middle East and the effective shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz are shaking global energy markets. What started as military strikes, followed by retaliation, quickly created fears about major disruptions to crude oil exports, especially through the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway carries about 20% of the world's seaborne oil and liquefied natural gas supplies. When shipping through that passage slows or stops, global oil markets react almost immediately. Experts say this situation may only be the beginning. Gas price analyst Dan McTeague warned that oil prices could continue climbing. He said he expects crude oil prices to rise by as much as $20 per barrel. According to McTeague, that type of increase would translate into about 20 cents more per litre at the gas pump, while diesel prices could rise by 35 to 40 cents per litre. For average Canadians, those numbers matter. A typical vehicle with a 50-litre tank would cost about $3 more per week if prices rise by 6 cents per litre. That may not sound dramatic at first, but the cost grows quickly for people who drive a lot, such as delivery drivers or rideshare drivers. If prices climb by 20 cents per litre, as McTeague predicts, drivers could be paying about $10 more every time they fill their tank. For families already struggling with inflation, that is real money disappearing straight into the gas tank. By Monday morning, retail pump prices had already risen to about 135.3 cents per litre, which is higher than the 128.8 cents recorded just 1 month earlier. Analysts say the trend is accelerating. Patrick DeHaan, who works as a petroleum analyst at GasBuddy, explained that retail prices are now responding exactly as expected after wholesale markets moved higher. He warned that most drivers should prepare for gradual price increases during the week. The speed of these increases surprised many Canadians. Oil prices jumped quickly after Iran's Revolutionary Guard warned shipping companies to stay away from the Strait of Hormuz. This narrow waterway along Iran's southern coast is responsible for transporting about 20% of the world's crude oil. The frustrating reality for Canadians is that Canada produces more oil than it consumes, which technically makes it a net energy exporter. but Canadians still pay global market prices for oil and gasoline. Energy analyst Jennifer Gray explained that rising global demand for Canadian crude could actually push prices higher inside Canada. She said that if other countries reduce production, there may be increased demand for Canadian oil, which would drive domestic prices upward. Another key question is how long the crisis will last. Rory Johnston, who is a Toronto-based oil market researcher and the founder of Commodity Context, said the real issue is not only whether the Strait of Hormuz closes, but how long it stays closed. If the disruption lasts only a few hours or a few days, then markets may recover quickly. But if the situation lasts for weeks or even months, the consequences could become much more serious for the global economy. At the moment, the outlook is not encouraging. Reports say that more than 150 commercial vessels recently dropped anchor inside the Persian Gulf as shipping companies try to avoid possible military danger. Those safety measures have effectively stopped around 15 million barrels of crude oil per day from reaching international markets. That represents a massive disruption to global supply. Price projections from energy analysts are becoming increasingly serious. Roger McKnight, who serves as chief petroleum analyst at Enpro International, explained that a crude oil increase from $67 to $80 per barrel would raise pump prices by about 8 cents per liter. If crude oil climbs to $100 per barrel, gasoline prices could jump by about 20 cents per liter. That would mean roughly $10 more for every fill-up in a typical 50-liter sedan. Drivers of larger vehicles like pickup trucks or SUVs with 100-liter tanks could see costs rise by about $20 every time they stop at the pump. Multiply that across millions of Canadian households filling their tanks every week, and the total economic impact becomes enormous. Billions of dollars could be drained from the economy simply to maintain basic transportation. But gasoline prices are only the first wave. The broader economic ripple effects could be even more serious. Johnson explained that anything that moves within the global economy will feel these fuel price increases very quickly. Higher fuel costs raise the cost of shipping goods, which eventually pushes up the prices consumers pay in stores. That means groceries transported by trucks could become more expensive. Goods shipped across the country may cost more. Nearly everything people buy depends on transportation, so higher fuel prices eventually reach almost every product. Unlike gasoline prices, which rise quickly at the pump, these secondary price increases appear gradually, but they often last longer. If the Middle East conflict continues into the spring, experts warn that Canadians could soon see higher prices for many goods and services, not just gasoline. Many economists say the situation echoes memories from 2022, when Russia's invasion of Ukraine triggered a surge in fuel costs and helped drive inflation to historic highs. There are a few factors that might offer temporary relief. The world currently holds large amounts of oil in what is known as floating storage. That means oil stored aboard tankers that have been idle for several days. Those floating supplies could provide a short-term buffer against disruptions caused by the current conflict. However, many analysts doubt that buffer will last long. Analysts at RBC Capital Markets warned that recent events could push oil prices up by 10 to 15%, with the possibility that crude could rise above $100 per barrel if the Strait of Hormuz remains blocked. $100 per barrel would push Canadian gas prices back to levels not seen since the peak of the Ukraine crisis. Unlike the situation during 2022, Canadians today have far less financial cushion. After several years of high inflation and rising interest rates, many households are already under serious financial pressure. Analysts say what really matters now is how long the conflict continues. If tensions ease, prices might stabilize or even decline. But if the war spreads or continues for months, fuel prices could climb even higher. Experts say Canadians should expect at least a 5 to 10% increase in gas prices in the near future. Seasonal factors are also adding pressure. Warmer spring weather increases travel demand, and fuel companies are preparing to switch to more expensive summer blend gasoline. Those two factors alone usually add about 5 cents per liter at the pump. That creates what economists describe as a perfect storm. A geopolitical crisis is pushing crude oil prices higher, while seasonal fuel changes add more costs, and there's no clear timeline for when tensions in the Middle East might ease. Economist Derek Holt, who serves as vice president and head of capital markets economics at Scotiabank, warned that rising geopolitical risk in the Middle East has increased the chances of a broader regional conflict. ongoing military operations involving Iran are creating major uncertainty for global energy markets and raising the risk of future supply disruptions. The wider economic impact could be severe. Higher fuel costs act like a regressive tax because they hit lower income households the hardest. These families spend a larger share of their income on transportation and food. And when transportation costs rise, food prices usually follow because most groceries in Canada travel hundreds or even thousands of kilometers by truck before reaching store shelves.